Stop building a marketing funnel and start building a revenue ecosystem. Funnels in marketing, something that are drilled into us from, whenever you start learning, whether that's in a role at the beginning of your career, whether that's in a degree that you're doing, whether you're an assistant somewhere, the marketing funnel. You have channels and people at the top of your funnel, and certain channels are suited well to being at the top of the funnel and the acquisition piece. And then as we nicely move the user through the journey down that funnel, different platforms and channels come into play that really help nurture that user to that point, that desired destination of a conversion. It's a little bit old school, to be honest. And although a funnel is linear, of course it is, and it's a simplified way of demonstrating how you can put together a marketing plan or strategy, your customers are not linear. And they're becoming less and less linear as time goes on. In fact, a recent study from Shopify showed that the user journey is only becoming more and more complex. So we have to evolve with that. Otherwise, we're building a serious problem, one that brings risk and uncertainty to the future of your revenue growth. The problem with simply viewing your marketing plan or strategy or approach as it is a funnel is that it really oversimplifies the way that a customer behaves. I, for one, very rarely will follow a linear journey when I'm shopping online for something new, whether that be a makeup item or something bigger like garden furniture. It's never just a step by step. These customers don't know that we want them to follow that linear journey and that we want them to follow that funnel. We haven't told them that. And even if we did, they probably wouldn't do it anyway. They bounce back and forth. They have new questions that they're thinking of throughout that journey. They're on different devices at different times on different platforms, but all still really trying to make this purchase decision. So sticking with a linear funnel that's really old school really isn't the way to move forward. It also really encourages overinvestment in top of the funnel. So acquisition, of course, is really, really important. But what about that nurturing piece? What about that lifetime value that actually really helps build those brand ambassadors and really helps you scale? That's super important. And if you're spending all of your time and energy and let alone budget on acquisition, and we do know that is the most expensive part of the funnel, then you're losing out on that and you're spending more money on getting these customers. When actually, if you looked after the ones that you already had and focus more bottom of the funnel and middle of the funnel, not necessarily overriding acquisition, but in equal measure, you're really going to see the gains there. So what does an unbalanced ecosystem look like? One dominant acquisition channel, usually contributing to 40% or more of your revenue and new customers. A weak retention layer, as I mentioned, solely focusing on acquisition, not really looking after the people that have helped your brand get to the point where it's at today. A minimal owned audience. So often if you are really focusing on that top of the funnel stuff, or if your revenue ecosystem is a little bit out of whack, what you tend to find most of the time is that actually what you own in terms of audience is really minimal, and you're having to earn a lot of it or pay for a lot of it, which really puts you at risk. Why shouldn't you own more of your customers and more of that loyalty and that revenue share? Of course you should. It's future proofing for your brand. And high volatility in revenue. So if you are really focusing on the acquisition piece, that peaks and flows, you're not looking after the people that you can depend on to purchase time and time again. So that is what an unbalanced ecosystem looks like. So what does a healthy ecosystem look like? You want to be looking at multiple acquisition channels that don't just depend on paid media, but also incorporate organic activity as well. So here we're talking about that strong retention engine. So your email marketing, SMS, loyalty schemes, even things like your customer service and how that is executed as part of your marketing strategy. All of that is so important, and it is absolutely essential for building a healthy ecosystem for your brand. Brand building channels. People forget about brand all of the time, and for some brands it's more important to have a real focus around brand than it is for others, and that's fine. But in every brand, there needs to be a certain amount of content, PR, or even affiliate or influencer work that just really helps personalize that brand and bring it into the homes of the people that you're wanting to spend money on your products. It's so often overlooked, but if you're building an e-commerce ecosystem that doesn't include anything that is brand focused, that's a real problem. It's a real oversight. And lastly, owned versus referred audience and revenue balance is really important. What that split should look like, there's no magic number, and ultimately that depends on your catalog, your business goals, your target audiences. But it's important to have a conversation with your marketing leaders in-house to really understand what that balance should look like, and ultimately what channels are going to help you achieve that. An important note though is that not all channels are equal. So when we talk about building a revenue ecosystem, and say hypothetically you have got 4 channels, we don't expect to see 25% of revenue coming in through each of them. That isn't the goal. It wouldn't be successful, and it isn't the best way to de-risk your business. So it's important to understand what types of channels play what roles within that ecosystem. So let's fire through those quite quickly. So paid is scale. You can see the ROI, you can see what is working, you can test, and you can invest to scale quite quickly. SEO and content is sustainability. It is that blueprint for your business, for your brand, for your e-com store to be visible and to let your users know that you take a user-centric approach with your content. Email and SMS is a lot about profitability. It's about taking that one customer and their initial first purchase and turning it into 5, 10, 20, 30 purchases and increasing that long-term value. And then you've got that brand, partnerships, PR piece, which is about that reach, about that credibility, about that personability, and bringing that brand into the forefront of your users' minds when they're thinking about needing a product such as yours. So I guess the thing to really ask yourself at this point is, if one channel dropped by 30%, would the rest compensate? And if not, how do you need to make an adjustment in that mix to really help make sure that you are not too dependent, you don't have one point of weakness within your revenue ecosystem? You need to be building balance, and you need to be building resilience. For more e-commerce strategies, insights, and conversations, subscribe to the eComOne channel.